welcome. And may I highlight, well, first let me just read the budget, no? So we know what we're discussing. Um, what we have, what is provided. So what is provided in the NEP for the Commission on Higher Education is 30,109,399,000.
Siguro
For
sa
the state
DepEd.
universities and colleges, including UP, this is 130,749,000,000 and 891,000 pesos.
Ayan. Okay
And
na kaya?
then for the University of the Philippines,
Okay naman siya.
total new
Tignan mo
appropriation
nga. Kung ano.
22,337,123,000
Double check pa natin.
pesos.
Nasaan?
Is President Gigil here?
Yes.
Step up.
Okay.
I thought I could see him.
Tignan natin.
Anyway,
Hello sa inyong lahat. Kung sino man nanonood dyan.
what I'd like to address,
Tayo
which
ulit.
is no longer surprising to me when I was first vice chair, I was always in a hurry to address the I would say somehow a bit of misinformation about the budget. Ngayon hindi na ako nagpapanik kahit na hindi ko na-explain, alam nyo na yun. Kasi kayo, those of you who know, but I understand that you need to ensure that you get the appropriate budget. So every year we go through this. Every year. The NEP contains a budget that will be lower than the previous year's GAB, the law that was passed, GAA. Why? Because the Senate, I can only speak for the Senate, but I know the House also has their own. We rally funding for the SUCs and for higher education. That's why the final amount will always be higher because we do not decrease, we increase. Tama ba? Oh, yes. Hindi bawal pumalakpak. Sa Senate floor bawal pumalakpak. Dito hindi bawal pumalakpak. So that's why every year the following NEP will be lower because they may or may not agree with the changes that we made. Thankfully, and one good example is the funding for our medical schools. If you will recall, Dr. Tirso, Popoy, a lot of the funding for the medical schools emanated from the Senate. Not a lot, all. And then I think it took a year or two for DBM to put it in their NEP. So we're always arguing and fighting for these fundings to become institutional funding so that every year hindi kami naghahalukay ng funding for these programs. But obviously, when you have a capital expenditure, so there's an SUC that this year has a science laboratory and another one has a multipurpose hall and another one has a dormitory, hindi naman nagiging continuing funding yon kasi nga, pinapaliwanag, nag-e-ending. So, I say this for the sake of those new to these hearings na hindi nyo alam na ganun yon. Okay, alamin nyo, yun. That doesn't prevent you for fighting for same or more amounts for other projects. But we have to help educate the people para hindi nasasayang energy natin. Diba? Gamitin natin yung energy natin kung saan kailangan. So, we want to fight for increased funding for multiple projects. So, natapos na yung natapos na yung isang dormitory, ang kailangan naman another academic building, then we fight for that. But we have to also educate the people and the students kasi sayang din energy ng students natin. Nag-rally sila na bumaba yung funding. Paliwanag nyo naman kung saan pumunta at ano yung next battle. Hindi yung same battle, same chant. Hindi The battles change. So we have to educate them. Good morning, Senator Sherwin. So that's my little lecture of the day because after this, I allow the resource person take the floor and I actually give the floor to my colleagues to ask questions. As chairman, I'm a facilitator. I will ask my questions in the end unless there was something that I feel just needs to be clarified for a more educated discussion. So, what I'd like to emphasize before I give the floor to our colleagues and then to the presenters is that every year for the past 6 years, 6 years na pala ako nag-chair nito, kala ko 4, it's been 6 years. So, as with me as chairman and with the support, of course, of our chairperson, me as vice chair, and that is former Senator Angara, now DepEd Secretary, and hopefully with the new chairperson, we have been able to increase the fundings for our state universities and colleges. Alam nyo yan. I will take the very low level of clapping as an indication na mahaba yung binyahe nyo. Dahil kung if I will make that a basis, which I never do, to be clear, I never do. Eh baka first year yung mababa ang funding nyo, but I'm just joking. So our goal for 2025 is to ensure that the SUCs receive funding at least equal to last year. But I'm not aware that we have ever just given equal. From my recollection, we've always increased it over the years because your needs have not been addressed. That's very clear to me. And if there are, even if you look at the committee report that we submit, and it's not just for the sake of making yabang na ganito yung nasubmit natin, kasi hindi ko job na pahirapan yung chairperson ko. Yung job ko is mag-submit sa kanya ng amendment na reasonably the chairperson, he or she would be reasonably capable of supporting. Merong wish list tier 1, wish list tier 2, so that mabigay ng chairperson ang best na kayang ibigay. So that is the goal. And that is what we hope to achieve in 2025. I apologize for the late start, but many of you were in the event that we had, which was the seed funding for the medical program grants that we wanted to give a few minutes to celebrate, because 4 years ago this did not exist. So it's something, we have to celebrate the milestones. And that is a milestone. We now have regular funding for our medical schools. It can be better, and we keep fighting for it to be better. And based on the briefing I've had, in my recollection, I think there were 2 years that medyo low yung utilization, and then now kulang na yung funding, which is a good thing, because nakakaiyak naman kung low yung utilization, di ba? Pero now that we have a good problem, that means nagagamit yung pondo, and the challenge is to find the proper funding. So, okay, our order of presentation will be higher education. You have 10 minutes. Then the state universities and UP will have 8 minutes each. I will ask our colleagues to ask their questions after all the presentations. Maiksi lang naman. And then my house rules are, you are all welcome. And since we are with educators, I hope that you also encourage this in your own schools, in your own board meetings, in your own classrooms. We encourage mobility breaks. We encourage you are more than welcome to stand up, go to the restroom, just stand up to stretch. You don't need my permission. There's only a few speakers, so they're the only people who need to be.
O bakit naglalag siya? Wala naman siyang kwan. Walang ibang naka-open. Sa kanila yun.
Seated and ready to present. Everyone else is welcome to take care of their own personal needs. And then I'm happy that everyone here did not bring a PET bottle, because we are also trying to be sustainable. I hope in the back we encourage, and I hope it's in our notice, because before it was in our notice, na please bring your own water container. We have water dispensers that you can use.
Bakit
And I think that's it. Okay, so I recognize Senator Joel Villanueva as well. And colleagues, you have a few quick comments?
That's it po, Sen.
Otherwise, we'll start? No? Yeah, we're good to start? Okay. So, ang order of presentation, I've already given it. So, we'll start with Chairman Popoy, and then please be ready after this, President Tirso Ronquillo.
Ang sungit pa naman eh. Sulit-sulit pa naman dito si si Kia. Ay, lumiti.
Thank you,
Hindi ko masungit.
thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senator Win Gatchalian and Senator Joel Villanueva.
So, committee on
Okay.
state colleges,
Can you play the PowerPoint, please?
universities. Sige, palitan natin yan. Hindi kayo mainit.
Okay. Thank you, and to all the presidents of the state universities and colleges. The salient features of the 2025 NEP of CHED.
State colleges.
Okay, can you go to the slide, please? Okay, the salient features of the 2025 National Expenditure Program of the Commission on Higher Education is that in our 2025 NEP, we have a total of 31.6 billion pesos allocated, of which 30.1 is from agency-specific budget and 1.5 billion from the HEDF. The biggest and significant funding, next slide please, for this year includes subsidy for UACTE at 26.2 billion, the medical scholarship program at 909 million, the seed fund for medical schools at 150 million, 45 million to implement EMSA recommendations, financial assistance for postgraduate studies, which increased by 688 million, access and success to equity target groups of 2.1 billion and internationalization of Philippine HEIs 37.5 million. So those are the more significant items. When you compare the 2024 NEP to the 2025 NEP, there is no budget reduction for CHED. I want to make that clear, as our chair has said. NEP to NEP, our NEP actually increased by 2.1 billion pesos from 30.9 to 31.6. So NEP to NEP, we have an increase of 2.1. If you factor in, next slide please, if you factor in the augmentations by the Senate in the House, our GAA to NEP, there is a difference of about 6 billion pesos from GAA to NEP, approximately 37.9 to 31.6 GAA to NEP. So that's a reduction of about 19.9. For the major success or the major projects implemented, the flagship program, of course, is the UACTE. Next slide, please. The budget for the UACTE from GAA to NEP, there is a reduction of about 2.7 billion pesos. This is because in the 2024 GAA, there is significant augmentation given particularly by the House of Representatives. So that augmentation is not included by practice of DBM in the 2025 NEP. So from 28.9, our budget in the NEP for free higher education is 26.2. Next slide, please. In terms of indicators for UACTE grantees, we now have about close to 400,000 students in close to 700,000 students in 100 local universities and colleges, and test grantees of about 600,000 students, including 181,000 tulong-dunong grantees. Next slide, please. We are happy to inform the Senate that our efforts in increasing and upskilling medicine and allied health manpower has been significant this budget year. As our chair had said, for the medical scholarship program, we started with 250 million in 2020.
Ang nangyari dito?
And this has increased to 500 million over the past 3 years. Starting 2024, the 500
Sir Jacob, thank you po.
million is not enough anymore for scholarships in our medical schools. And the Commission had to realign significant amounts from its existing projects so that we can continue covering the medical scholarship. Next slide, please. So for 2025, we were able to increase in our NEP the funding for our medical scholarship from 500 million pesos to 909 million pesos. This amount, however, is still scarce given the fact that we now have more than 3,000 scholars from our public universities and contracted private schools for our medical scholarship. We will request from the Senate to augment some more funds, particularly for 2025, because we are now allocating approximately a little over 23 scholars only per medical school, and they have more qualified scholars who are included. Next slide, please. This is because we have increased significantly the number of SUCs with newly opened Doctor of Medicine programs.
Nangyari dito. Ba't nagluloko siya?
We have increased it by about 4 additional SUC programs per year. From the original 8, there are now 23 public universities with medical programs. And so the funding for scholarship is not enough anymore for our qualified scholars. For the seed fund, we'd like to inform our members of the Senate that we have been giving grants to the seed fund for medical schools, particularly the newly opened ones. We'd like to thank Senator Pia Cayetano in particular, and Senator Angara of the Committee on Finance, because they augmented in the past 2 years the budget allocated for the seed program. It used to be augmentation by the Senate every year. We were able to get and include it in the NEP the other year, but this was still low, and for this year we only have 150 million included in our NEP, where in fact yearly we give around 250 to 275 million. Next slide, please. Another major achievement of the Commission is to address the issue on how to increase our health manpower. We have already reduced the number of years to acquire a medical program through the launching of the APMED program. This is an accelerated medical program which effectively reduces the number of academic years from 6 years to 4 years. And several schools have already signified their intention to offer a shorter medical program. We are hoping that our state universities and colleges will follow suit West Visayas State University has already indicated that they are open to having a shorter medical program so that we can produce doctors faster. Next slide, please. As instructed by the President, we have given significant attention in increasing or reskilling our allied health manpower. We are providing free nursing review programs for clinical care associates employed in public and private hospitals. We have launched an enhanced master's program which effectively reduces the number of years to complete a master's program by recognizing prior learning and prior experience of nurses so that we can increase the number of faculty members teaching in our nursing schools. And we continue to push for Philippine credit transfer system. We have, of course, lifted the ban on the opening of new nursing programs, and 38 new higher education institutions have been authorized to offer a nursing program. So we project that about close to 3,000 additional nursing graduates by 2026. We'd also like to inform the Senate that there is good news. The passing rate in nursing licensure exams has increased to almost 80% in 2023. So if you add the increased number of graduates and the increased passing rate in nursing licensure exams, we are slowly addressing the nursing problem in the Philippines. This was also what was reported in the PISAC to the President, where the Private Sector Advisory Council said that the nursing problem in the Philippines, the worst may be over, and we now just have to keep on continue pushing it. Next slide, please. For maritime, we continue to implement our commitments under EMSA 2022. Next slide, please. That's why this year, with a budget of 45 million, we have been able to formulate a national merchant marine aptitude test, which can be given to students or interested in a maritime
Hello, Ma'am Los Marissima. Thank you. Ay,
program, so the schools have a better idea of the competencies of the students that are applying for the program. The funding for 45 million this year will also be used for faculty training on curriculum design and development in maritime education. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. One of the most significant increases in our NEP is the increase in our funding for scholarship for graduate studies and continuing professional development. Next slide, please. This is because we have received no less than 7 presidential directives. These are instructions of the President on addressing faculty development in our higher education institutions, including a presidential directive to increase the number of faculty members with postgraduate degrees, ramping up efforts to address healthcare workforce shortage, training and skills upgrading of our IT specialists, rectifying job and skills mismatch, provision of training to ease the transition of workers to digitization, addressing the need for more instructors in medical schools, and skills matching and upgrading of the Filipino labor force. That's why for this year, we have a long list of activities and projects that we are doing. We'd like to inform our senators that we are providing continuing capacity building program for our faculty members in both public and private universities. Our SUC presidents and officials already completed a comprehensive certificate program at the Asian Institute of Management last year. And this year, we are providing certificate programs at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania for our university presidents in both public and private universities. We are also doing that in our aviation education, in developing digital leadership in our university leaders, and our increased number for the nursing profession and for mental health. Next slide. For performance and major accomplishments, based on our commitments, that we have done, we'd like to inform the Senate that the participation rate in higher education has significantly increased over the past couple of years. We're now up to 47.4% of university-age students are in university. This is a significant increase over the past 5 or 6 years prior to the free higher education law. We are comparable with our ASEAN countries, particularly Malaysia and Thailand, in terms of participation rate. Next slide, please. In terms of graduation rate for first degree programs, based on the UNESCO data of 2024, our graduation rate in the Philippines is 56.8%. We are close to the graduation rate in Singapore, higher than the graduation rate in Thailand and Indonesia. So our performance in terms of the entry and exit of our graduates is quite significant. Next slide, please. The good news, of course, is that the completion or the graduation rate for TES and tulong-dunong graduates is much higher than our national average. The graduation rate for our TES and tulong-dunong graduates goes up to more than 70% as far as the TES graduates are concerned. This has created a problem in most of our state universities and colleges where so many students want to enter our public universities. The percentage of students who get admitted to our public schools continues to go down because the number of applicants is much, much higher than the available slots. Our concern as a commission is that if we don't do anything about this, what will happen is that the students coming from poorer households, from public schools, from rural areas may be squeezed out of the admission system in our public universities. And those who are better prepared coming from private schools and others may be able to avail of free tuition more than those that we want to target. That's why this year, we launched the Paglaom Kag Pagdaog, Access and Success for Quality and Inclusive Higher Education, where our state universities are now reviewing their admission policies so that they can revise and amend it so that it develops an equity dimension, so that slowly they track students admitted coming from public schools, coming from poverty-stricken areas, so that slowly we will be able to bring in more students who really need university education to go to university. Once they are in university, our state universities and colleges are reviewing their policies so that they can take care of the students that enter their university, so they complete their education, they graduate, and they become professionals. This year, the UP Manila launched the project to offer free online review classes for students who are taking the Agriculture Board examinations. This is being provided free to 15 state universities and colleges coming from the most far-flung areas like Basilan, Tawi-Tawi, Sulu, and Batanes, and state universities that have a low passing percentage in our Agri Board exams. This is being done by UP Los Baños, given for free, funded by CHED, and they just completed the review classes last weekend. 950 students have undergone these review classes, and we hope that most of them will pass the Agri Board exams this November. Next slide, please. Our universities continue to internationalize. From 52 universities that are internationally ranked, this year we had 87, including 2 universities that were mentioned in the State of the Nation address of the President, a small local college in Pampanga, Mabalacat City College, and Samar State University were included in the SONA for ranking very high and ranking first in the evaluation of universities all over the world. Next slide, please. As we noted this morning, we have increased the number of medical schools. 11 new medical programs were established over the past 2 years. and we are giving free review classes to close to 500 clinical care associates. These are underboard nursing graduates who are working in our government and private hospitals. Our top nursing schools are providing free review programs so that we can convert our underboard nurses in our hospitals to pass the licensure exam this year. Next slide, please. For the physical performance, our report is that out of the 12 indicators for physical performance, CHED was able to exceed its target for 9 indicators and was able to meet the target for 1 indicator. We were not able to meet two indicator targets due to the following reasons, and these are the number of faculty members provided with faculty development grants, because we didn't have enough money to do this, and the number of research development and innovation projects funded. We are not able to meet these two physical performance indicators. Next slide. Next slide. The rest of the slides are breakdown of physical indicators. We now go to budget utilization. Okay, for budget utilization, out of the 30.9 allocated budget in the continuing 2023 budget of CHED, the biggest bulk of that, 87%, is allocated for free higher ed. That amounts to about 27 billion pesos. We have obligated and disbursed most of it. We still have some funds in 2023 that we will have to disburse until December. These are basically UACTE related funds for our test grantees in our universities.
Nangyari dito.
We'd like to inform the Senate that 2024 was very challenging on the part of the Commission because we received a very big augmentation from the House of Representatives for our test and tulong-dunong grants. And it's challenging because there are so many grantees to be evaluated, and this slowed down the validation and disbursement. We promised the Senate that we will catch up with our disbursement and liquidation for the rest of the year. Pero medyo bumagal talaga kami ngayong 2024 because we received an augmentation of about 6 billion pesos additional. And we use the same number of personnel in our regions to do it. So we are unable to be as efficient as previous years. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. In terms of fiscal performance, as of September 20, our agency-specific budget, that's what I said, our obligations is still low. Many of this or most of this is free higher education related. And we are doing our best to catch up with our obligation and disbursement, particularly for UACTE. Next slide, please. There are several DBM observations on CHED utilization of the 2023 GAA. Next slide, please. Okay. The DBM noted that the effectiveness of synchronizing the budget by fiscal year instead of by academic year, because we work on a fiscal year basis now, that the Commission's utilization was affected negatively during the late and slow utilization of funds for its programs that are mostly related to scholarships. This is what I mentioned. The bulk of an unobligated allotment is from the provision of free higher ed. The other observations of the DBM is that we are slow in using the funds for the foreign scholarship training program. This is augmentation coming from Senator Tolentino in the Senate. and the subsidy for tuition fees of medical students, because there is a transition from the funds of DOH. DOH has stopped giving its medical scholarship. The only agency now doing medical scholarship is CHED, and our disbursement rate on this is low because we're now just completing the original scholarships. Next slide, please. But we do promise the Senate that based on our 5-year allotment and utilization, if you notice, from 2019 to 2023, our allotment and utilization has been significantly high. We are able to catch up in terms of total allotment, total obligation, and total disbursement. Next slide, please. So that if you look at the 5-year allotment and utilization of CHED, we have ranged from 91% to 98% over the past 4 years. Our allotment and utilization for the continuing 2023 GAA is at 86%. We commit to make this in the high 90s. Last year, we had 99% disbursement and obligation, so that we will catch up with our performance in the previous years. So obligation versus allotment is from 92% to 98% in the previous 4 years. We are targeting that we will reach 97 or 98% this year. For the Higher Education Development Fund, next slide. This is also allotment and utilization. We're actually high in our allotment and utilization. Next slide, please. Where our utilization rate for the HEDF is 99.99% in 2022. From 2020 to 2022, we used up almost all of the HEDF. And we commit to reach the same 99.9% for 2023, because 2023, there is a special provision extending the use of the 2023 HEDF to 2024. Much of this HEDF, by the way, for our senators, was also part of the instructions of the House to be able to pay the reimbursement of our private schools with no sook, no look, because of the budget shortfall in 2021 and 2022. Next slide, please. So there are several areas where we admit that we have problems in utilization, but we do have a catch-up plan for this. May I ask, Madam Chair, that our Unifast Executive Director be recognized to give the catch-up plan for free higher education. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the esteemed members of the Senate, for the slow utilization of our UACT budget, our catch-up plan is that 3.7 of the the continuing 6 billion will be for payment of our test new grantees for the first semester of academic year 23-24, and the rest of that, which is almost 3 billion, will be for the ongoing request for payment for continuing tests and TDP grantees on the first semester of 23-24. And the funds amounting to 5.7 has been, or almost 5.8, has been obligated by the regions for the UACT tests and TDP payments as of September 15, 2024, of which 5.3 has already been disbursed as of September 15, 2024. For our unutilized budget for 2024, which is still amounting to 23 billion, we are in close coordination on the submission of the new tests and new TDP for the second semester of academic year 23-24. And we will fast-track the validation and cross-checking of applications and continuing grantees. In fact, we have already simplified the process for validation. We will now be using the enrollment list, no? So we will also simplify the liquidation procedures so that we can catch up with the payments and disbursement of our UACT funds, Madam Chair. So the obligation and disbursement rate is expected to increase as the funds become available in this fourth quarter of this year, Madam Chair.
Maraming salamat.
Next slide. Okay, this is the allotment and utilization. The next item where there is slow utilization is our transnational higher education and the foreign scholarship training program. Madam Chair, may we ask that you recognize our international affairs service to explain what is the problem and what is the catch-up plan for these two areas, transnational higher education and foreign scholarship for civilian officers of the armed forces.
Good morning, Madam Chair. For the transnational higher education budget for this year, we have in the screen we have the programs that we have been implementing. We have conducted the right shop on transnational higher education regulations with national government agencies. So nagkaroon na po kami ng dalawang master class on this one, and it was attended by NGA representatives, national government agency representatives, and also in November we will be having the master class on transnational higher education with this NGA's representatives also. And also we have from this event we will be conducting the study and benchmarking missions to education hubs in Malaysia. And also we have the alignment monitoring of TNHC providers are also being arranged for in the next 3 months po. And the foreign scholarship and training programs, this
Can
is
you
the
move 2 slides to number 3,
this is
please?
the budget that an insertion from the office of Senator Tolentino. So
Please move the slides to next slide.
Ayun, next slide.
this has been approved by the Commission in May 2024, and we have conducted the program with the University of Cincinnati and the University of Cordillera. So our participants under this program have conducted and attended. It was attended by also participated by CHED officials in the University of Cincinnati. And in November, we will be having the program implemented with the MAAP for the maritime area. So this has been na po ito na obligate na po ito, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last observation is with respect to the Philippines Qualifications Framework, which I'm sure Senator Joel Villanueva is interested. May I ask Director Cherry to explain what is happening with the Philippines Qualifications Framework?
Okay. Ano nang nangyari? Nasaan yung magsasalita? Wala yung magsasalita.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair. For the Philippine Qualifications Framework, Institutionalization in Higher Education, we have crafted the policies for the Philippine Credit Transfer System for hotel management, restaurant management, dentistry, agricultural and biosystems engineering. This is set to be presented for approval by our Commission and Bank and for public consultation, orientation. Currently, we have ongoing initiatives to develop the guidelines for nursing, early childhood education, industrial technology, nutrition and dietetics, and game development and animation. This is our contribution for the creative industries group. We are also in the process of finalizing the lifelong learning framework in higher education and the crafting of the guidelines for micro-credentials, as well as the enhancement of the implementation of the Expanded Tertiary Education Equivalency Accreditation Program, or the ETIAP, which is a mode for recognition of prior learning. Thanks.
Madam Chair, I'd like to inform the Senate that as our discussion with Senator Villanueva was this morning, I am not very happy with the movement of the PCTS, but because we have a new TESDA chair, we had a long meeting with Director General Kiko Benitez, and we promised to change the systems and procedures so that we can fast track it. And we have committed to the President that we will have PCTS for 5-degree programs in 2025. We are thankful for the appointment of the President for our new Director General, and we've had a very fruitful discussion. We commit that in 2025 things will be different. Next slide, please. Last 2 points that we'd like to bring to the information of the Senate. The DBM report on the financial performance of CHED. The DBM noted that we have a higher disbursement rate this year than previous years. It is our obligation rate that is not as high. And it is really because of free higher ed, especially tulong dunong and TES grantees. The other observation is that as required by law, the percentage of projects funded for tourism-related programs and projects as required by the Tourism Act of 2009, we have hit 53%. So we are now compliant with the requirement of the Tourism Act that majority of programs and projects under the HEDF coming from the collection of travel taxes should go to tourism-related projects. We started off at about 23% when we started realigning our utilization of the HEDF. We are now up to 53%. I think that's the end of my my presentation. Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. That ends my presentation.
Thank you. As mentioned, we'll ask our questions later. So I now call on Pasok President Dr. Tirso Ronquillo.
Thank you so much, Sir R.N. 2 cents.
May we request the Secretariat to flash our short presentation?
Si Pia Cayetano ang committee dito, ano?
Okay, so while the Secretariat is fixing our presentation, allow me to recognize our dear
Ano na naman yun?
colleagues in the Senate, the Honorable Chairperson of Finance Subcommittee D, Senator Pia Cayetano, our other members of the Senate, our good friend Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Win Gatchalian, the Chairperson and Commissioners, staff of Commission on Education, my colleagues in state universities and colleges, other government agencies, good afternoon. On behalf of the 113 SHOWBIZ in the country, allow me to express our sincerest gratitude to present, to this opportunity to present to the honorable members of the Senate the expenditure program of SHOWBIZ for 2025. With your support, both legislative and non-legislative, SHOWBIZ are hopeful that our ample share in the fiscal year 2025 budget will be secured. The SHOWBIZ budget of 107.04 billion in, I think, the next slide, in 2023 and 128.23 billion for the current year were used prudently and continuously being put to good use as reflected in the individual SHOWBIZ accomplishments. The major thrust and strategic direction are in pursuit of our core mandates aligned with the national development goals, the raison d'etre of the state universities and colleges, our reason of existence. We ensure access to quality tertiary education and lifelong learning. We lead in the advancement of research, innovation, and development. We increase community engagement in addressing the needs of local communities, and we foster partnerships, collaboration, and internationalization. In the next slide, over and above the 300,000 graduates that SUCs produce annually and the ever-expanding access to and relevance of higher education programs, these slides highlights the key achievements and notable accomplishments of SUCs over the past 2 years. As presented by Chair De Vera, SUCs have made significant strides in our internationalization efforts by the growing presence of SUCs into globally recognized ranking systems. In the 2024 World University Innovation Rankings, or WURI, as presented, 35 SUCs were listed, up from 25 previous this year. What is worth highlighting, Madam Chair, is of the 63 HCIs in the Philippines, 35 of them are SUCs, or 56% of the HEIs who included in WURI are from our SUCs. And additionally, 33% were featured in the 2024 Times Higher Education Impact Ranking as presented. But I would like to emphasize that of the 56 HCIs in the country, 33 of them are all from SUCs, or 57% of HCIs in the country who were recognized in THC Impact Ranking are from SUCs. So we congratulate our SUCs. Furthermore, SUCs experienced a notable increase in research outputs in 2023, exceeding the 7,948 recorded in 2022. In 2023, 5,520 SUC extension programs and services were extended to the community. The average licensure passing rate for first-time takers also showed improvement, rising to 51.43% in 2022, which was from 50.89 in 2021. In the next slide, on environmental, climate change adaptation, and cultural research initiatives, in line with the mandates of state universities and colleges, we have undertaken various activities and research initiatives for focusing on environmental sustainability, climate change adaptation, and cultural preservations, as evidenced by the completed and ongoing projects and programs under our SUCs. These slides highlights the period from fiscal year 2022 to the current fiscal year, where there are 564 projects completed or in progress related to environmental and climate change. Specifically, more than 139 million in research funding, both from institutional and external sources, has been allocated to climate change adaptation-related initiatives, with 59 SUC-based research and innovation centers supporting climate change adaptation efforts. In addition, 93 projects focusing on heritage site preservation and cultural mapping have either been completed or are currently underway. In the next slide, the strength of public higher education in the Philippines lies in the strong 113 SUCs with 497 satellite campuses currently serving 2 million students, producing and contributing to the workforce average of 300,000 graduates each year, molded by 90,000 faculty and staff, and supported by 50,000 job order workers, both faculty and employees, individual contract of service providers, as well as part-time lecturers. In the next slide, the total budget per 2025 NEP is 113.749 billion pesos. Broken down by expense class, 57.29% or 65.17 billion of the total budget is allocated for personal services. 34.32% or 39.04 billion is for MOOE, and only 8.39% or 9.54 billion is for capital outlays. In the next slide, to continue, The table in this slide shows the breakdown of the 2025 NEP by program. Out of the 113 billion budget, the biggest share is for higher education program at 46.5 billion or 40.86%, followed by pre-higher education at 23.4 billion or 20.56%. Only 2.3 billion or 2% is allotted for research programs despite it being a core mandate of SUCs and potent instrument for national development. The allotment for FHE, although slightly higher than the fiscal year 2024 budget, is still inadequate considering the projected number of enrollees in fiscal year 2025, which will be around 2 million. To continue in the next slide, this shows the regional distribution of our 2025 NEP program. Of the total budget, UP system got the biggest share at 20%, followed by Region 3, 12 SUCs, and Region 6, 11 SUCs at 8%. And NCR, consisting 7 SUCs excluding UP, is at 7% share, while Region 4A with 5 SUCs and Region 8 with 10 SUCs and a message system at 6%. So notably, we have this distribution. UP got 20% share. In the next slide, the trend in SUC's budget through the years from 2015 to 2024 has been constantly increasing through the sincere effort and support of the Senate by providing additional funding. And that is, we are forever grateful, as mentioned by Senator Pia, as she starts this meeting. Really, and we attest, we experience in SUCs that our budget through the years, since 2015 up to 2024, is steadily increasing. And for that, we are thankful po. Lakasan pa natin para medyo madami-dami addition. Okay. However, for fiscal year 2025, when compared to GAA, the budget of 113.749 billion represents a huge decrease of 14.481 billion over the SUC's budget for 2024, or an 11.29% cut. Broken down, there is an increase in personal services of 5.469 billion or 9.16%, as well as an increase in MOOE of 2.016 billion or 5.44%. But a huge decrease in capital outlay of 9.537 billion or 69.73%, which we are hopeful that the Senate will augment. And we are always hopeful as our experience in previous years. SUCs are sincerely appealing that their budget cuts on capital outlays be restored in fiscal year 2025 GAA. Now, on comparison, in the next slide, in this slide, the slide shows a regional comparison of GAA 2024 versus NEP 2025. It can be noted that 14 regions consisting of 87 SUCs have registered a consolidated increase of 6.94 billion, ranging from 0.63% to 43.87%, but sadly, 3 regions, as well as UP and MSC system consisting of 29 SUCs have a combined net decrease of 21.42 billion, ranging from 9.56% to 57.24%. The decrease is mostly on capital outlay, Madam Chair. In the next slide, to continue, as shown in our table, if NEP, this is, I think, one being highlighted by Senator Pia, that over the year, though our GAA in the current year is higher than the NEP in 2025, it can be noted, apparently, that when you compare the NEP of 2024 to the NEP of 2025, the amount of 11.13.749 billion in fiscal year 2025 is higher by 12.867 billion or 12.67% of NEP of the current year. of 100.82 or 88 billion for 113 SUCs. 110 SUCs registered a net increase of almost 13 billion, while it is also sad to note that when we compare the two NEP 2024 and NEP 2025, there is an increase, but that is the average. There are 6 SUCs that registered a decrease of 175 million, 175.5 million when their NEPs were compared. We gave to your office the list of SUCs, Madam Chair. That is on NEP to NEP comparison. In the next slide, PASOK is truly appreciative that Congress and the Senate have stepped with the additional appropriations through the years. It is, we believe, reflective of a transformative and resilient approach on the legislative for higher education. Nevertheless, SUC budget appropriation is mostly for current operating expenditure for PS and MOE and less for capital outlay. Further, SUC budget appropriation per NEP and GAA are always significantly lower than their proposed budget. As shown in this table, the NEP amount of 113.75 billion is lower by 153.56 billion or 57.45% of the proposed budget of 267.3 billion. This is the proposal of SUCs through the respective RDCs, Original Development Council. So, of the proposed 129.6 billion budget for capital outlays, only 9.53 billion was considered for funding or a reduction of 92% approximately. In the next slide, this is on SUC's financial performance. As per the BESF table, obligations over appropriations, in 2023, the rate of utilization is 83%. However, since there are continuing appropriations, the rate are actually higher at 86%. With GAA 2023 continuing appropriations of 14.9 billion, that is MOE plus capital outlay, until December 31, 2024. Meanwhile, the budget utilization for the GAA 2024 budget is 46. That is on obligation BUR and 74% on disbursement BUR, that is as of the middle of this year. In the next slide, on SUC pre-higher education.
Next slide.
This is our one of the prominent concerns in recent years among SUCs. We are thankful for the continuing budget allocation for pre-higher education since 2017. However, starting in 2022, when the pre-higher education budget was directly released to SUCs, 89 out of 114 SUCs suffered a deficiency with a total amount of 3.34 billion pesos for fiscal year 2022. This deficit increased to 4.4 billion pesos for 104 SUCs in fiscal year 2023, with an estimated shortfall of 2.3 billion pesos projected for fiscal year 2024. When we say deficiency, it is the difference between the amount allotted to pre-higher education in the GAA vis-a-vis the pre-higher education due to SUCs based on actual enrollment. Notably, for fiscal year 2022, SUCs were able to partially reduce this deficiency by 998 million pesos, although through reimbursement from UniPast, bringing down the gap to 2.3 billion pesos for 2022. The total deficiency for fiscal years 2022 and 2023 stands at 6.8 billion, which is to be covered by the 2024 GAA and program appropriations. We are currently awaiting guidelines and instruction from the Department of Budget and Management, but we are thankful that a number of our SUCs in the region were advised by the respective regional development offices to transmit or submit to their office this reimbursement for the 2 years. In the meantime, for the projected 2024 pre-higher education deficiencies, final billings are being processed and SUCs through the respective governing boards are determining whether it can be charged against available internally generated income, if there's any, as may be certified by the governing board, or accessing funds from the said HEDF as authorized by 2024 GAS Special Provision Number 5. With the projected tertiary enrollment of 1.9 million or around 2 million in fiscal year 2025 and an FHC allocation in the NEP of 23.4 billion pesos, a deficiency of 3.69 billion peso is still anticipated. Therefore, it is our earnest request that an additional amount of 3.7 billion pesos be appropriated to the pre-higher education for fiscal year 2025 to fully address this gap. In the next slide,
Ay, matagal pa.
this is on SUC's infrastructure projects implementation through DPWH. I hope you can see this table clearly.
No?
In executing our fiscal year 2024 budget and meeting expenditure targets is the implementation of infrastructure projects subjected to the 2025 GAA Special Provisions Number 5. The DPWH Joint Circular Number 1, Series of 2024. It can be noted in this table that 26 of these implementable projects have yet to undergo Memorandum of Agreement, but only with approved authority to enter into MOA between SUC and DPWH. It can be also gleaned from the table that out of 191 infrastructure projects amounting to a total of 7.65 billion peso, there were 2 unimplementable projects as certified by both DPWH and SUCs, leaving 189 number of implementable projects. Of this, 76 already have signed MOA, but SUCs and DPWH are still finalizing DAED and program of works. That is as of our recent survey last September 18 of this year. 28 projects have both signed MOA and have final concurrence on the DAED from the SUCs and DPWH, but are under procurement. 26 projects have both signed MOA and have final concurrence on the design, architectural engineering design or detailed architectural engineering design from SUCs and DPWH, but are under procurement. It can be noted, which is to us also alarming, only 13 of the 189 implementable projects have been reported that they have just started. They have signed MOA, finalized DAED, done the procurement process, and are in the implementation or mobilization stage. So this is data for 103 SUCs with 2 projects deemed unimplementable, indicate that they have no infrastructure projects or infra projects and are not covered by DPWH CHED Joint Circular. So for your information, Madam Chair. In the next slide,
Ay? Haba naman yan.
this is on the wishes, as you mentioned a while ago, of our SUCs. We recognize the limited fiscal space for fiscal year 2025, but it's also our humble belief that in pursuit of delivering quality higher education, equipment provision, and infrastructure development should also be given priority to better serve our stakeholders. This is critically important in ensuring that SUCs continue to build their capacities, both human and physical, the demands of higher education considering. It is our collective crusade and prayer for continued assistance to the committee's kind in consideration for additional budget for priority programs of SUCs. It can be recalled that in my previous presentation, previous slide, of the NEP of 2025, less than 10% is for capital outlay. Hence, this wishes, Madam Chair. In the next slide, this is on the revised organization and staffing standard for SUCs, shortly ROS. Generally, for our kind information, ROS is plantilla position for non-teaching personnel. While we consider the need for additional capital outlays, as we always lament, we're always also mindful of the plight of our human resources and manpower support. We are pleased to report that the implementation of Phase 1 of ROS has resulted in the creation of approximately 11,309 new positions, which includes staffing in the offices of SUC presidents, SUC vice presidents, administrative and finance division, and staffing standards for satellite campuses. 7,862 of this position have been filled out as of July 31, 2024, and the hiring process is still ongoing. Additionally, we pray for continued implementation and adequate funding for the revised staffing standards for SUCs from DBM. We are hopeful that the next tranche, that is Phase 2 of ROS, focusing on research, extension, and auxiliary services, will be finalized by the end of fiscal year 2024 and will be implemented in fiscal year 2025. We are happy to recognize and thank the DBM and SHED for being able to submit or forward to our office for comment the latest draft of the ROS Phase 2. And we're about to send our comment before October 6. Hopefully, through our combined efforts, ROS Phase 2 will, the joint circular, as the draft is already prepared, the final draft will be able to be distributed or disseminated before the end of the year. In summary, Madam Chair, honorable members of the committee, on behalf of the 113 SUCs, we earnestly seek the support of this honorable body through its legislative power on the following. First, assist us in accessing the 2024 unprogrammed appropriations for addressing the FHE deficiencies of SUCs for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023 with a total combined amount of 6.8 billion based on actual enrollment, as well as securing funds from the SHED HCDF to cover the pre-higher education deficiencies in fiscal year 2024 estimated at 2.3 billion. Second, also our prayers, increase the appropriation to cover the estimated deficiency in the allocation for pre-higher education from the current 23.4 billion per 2025 NEP to 27.1 billion in the fiscal year 2025 GAA based on the tertiary enrollment capacity as projected. Third, remove a certain statement under paragraph 3 of the special provision applicable to state universities and colleges, to wit, pre-higher education for state universities and colleges. In case the appropriation is depleted, the SUCs may charge the funding requirements against their internally generated funds, subject to accounting and auditing rules and regulations. The accumulated internally generated funds of SUCs, as reflected in the BESF table, have already been earmarked for ongoing projects awaiting completion and cannot be considered savings.
Tapos na?
Fourthly,
Meron pa pala, kala ko tapos na.
our earnest request to provide an appropriation of 3.7 billion in the fiscal year 2025 GAA for the implementation of ROS Phase 2. Fifth, restore the budget for capital outlays of 56 SUCs amounting to 25.75 billion in fiscal year 2025.
Gusto ko magsalita sa...
Allocate funds in fiscal year 2025 GAA for two top priority projects, but we have submitted to the office of the good chair the list. We already submitted only the first wishes of our SUCs. We hope that as we consider these first wishes or first wish really critical in delivering our mandate, we earnestly request that this be given favor. Seventh, Madam Chair and honorable members of this committee, our request to remove in the fiscal year 2025 GAA a special provision or similar statement to the one included in the GAA 2024, which states, SUC's infrastructure projects, the Department of Public Works and Highways shall implement the infrastructure projects of SUC's exceeding 5 million pesos. We request that for fiscal year 2025, SUCs be allowed to manage the implementation of these infrastructure projects as we have done in the past to avoid delays in delivering these urgently needed facilities, academic buildings, and dormitories. As you have noted in our presented summary, again, out of 189 implementable projects, only 13 of them have just started. That's why, or hence, our request to exclude that special provision in the forthcoming GAA 2025. In closing,
Oh, closing na daw.
the ability of the 113 SUCs.
President Ronquillo, nandiyan ka na rin naman sa in closing. Before you go to the closing, can you repeat, while I have the two gentlemen here, because I don't know if they'll stay till the very end, and I ask my questions in the end. But can you just explain, I know the answer but I want you to put it on record, na bakit nyo yung number 7 nyo, bakit nyo nire-request na ibalik sa inyo? Kasi, colleagues, this is a insertion of the Finance Committee na 5 million and above would be given to DPWH. So ano yung reason nyo why what effect has this had on your construction projects?
Madam Chair, for the record, we never experienced this before. For the current year, 2024, we have 189 implementable projects.
Okay.
Most of us have almost awarded the projects since the first quarter. Because of the early procurement activities, as these projects reflected in the NEP, we were advised to have early procurement activities. But because of this, we were precluded to proceed. And it is because of the delay, Madam Chair. Imagine in 189 implementable projects, only 13 are ongoing. And the biggest part of this is the 79 projects we have, the 76 with approved MOA, but SUCs and DPWH is still finalizing the detailed architectural engineering design. Meaning to say, we have talked to our regional DPWH, Madam Chair, and it's also their lamentation. They don't have enough engineers and architects to attend to the SUCs, I think, more intricate design requirements than DepEd. It can
So
be...
in other words, because you showed this earlier, in other words, if you didn't have to coordinate with DPWH, the SUCs have their own design works ready.
Yes po.
Ready na.
Yes po.
O may I take note, Secretariat, mas malakas pa yung yes nila dun sa palakpak kanina, okay? So, pagka pala importante sa inyo, kahit hindi palakpak, napaparamdam nyo yung inyong damdamin.
Another, Madam Chair, to drive our point. The high cost of per square meter in DPWH, we have submitted our estimate, our design, and the scope of works. The reason why you will see on the table, there are 76 with MOA already, but we are finalizing the DAED, the detailed architectural design, because it's the stage where the university and DPWH should concur the cost, the scope, and the specifications. So, meaning to say, if, let's say, for example, we have this X amount for 10 classrooms, the same X amount, when reverted to us, is less than 10 classrooms, as per our computation. When
Just submit to us all the SUCs who want to give us an example to illustrate that. Maganda yung sinabi mo, for the budget, you have 10 classrooms, ang babalik sa inyo for the same budget is less than 10 classrooms. O, paki-submit. Wag naman yung 9 kasi medyo nagkakalapit. Kung yung mas malayo pa doon. Okay? Para simple. Yes?
Yes, Madam Chair, we will do po.
Okay.
Salamat po.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, on the same topic, just to interject, in my experience, because we also worked with some SUCs and we have helped them with some infrastructure projects, ang napansin ko, mas mura sa SUCs pag nagpapatayo sila compared sa DPWH. In fact, I asked that kasi na-curious ako. And some of the SUCs, they use their own engineering, may engineering core sila may engineering core, they have their own architectural core, and of course they have licensed engineers to sign it. Pero sometimes the cost is with DPWH is 3 times more or 3 to 4 times more than the SUC. So this is my personal experience, and in fact in Valenzuela meron kaming pinapatayong housing doon, na notice rin namin mas mahal talaga sa DPWH, no. So I think we should
Ano yun?
aside from the of course the process and the red tape,
Siyempre,
I think it's wiser to just download it to the SUCs para sila na lang magpatayo. Dahil mas mura po eh. Napansin ko lang to, Madam Chair. I noticed that with my work with my partnership with some SUCs.
Madam Chair, to
Madam
add po.
Chair, if I may also before you respond, I wish I could show you, Madam Chair, our world-class facility in Bulacan State University. And even during that time, Madam Chair, we were talking about the cost. Halos doble po yung cost nung sa DPWH than the SUCs implementing the project. And it turned out really nice. And I'm proud of it, Madam Chair. So I hope we can do something about it. Just to put that on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you po, Sen Win and Sen Joel, for your for sharing the same observation.
Pero ayaw nyo sabihin bakit eh. Parang alam na ba? Hashtag alam na?
Actually po ay para din yan, teacher. Nagtatanong sa estudyante pero alam na ang sagot. Anyway, Madam Chair, to continue po, it's not only because our SUCs are offering architecture or engineering. ROS Phase 1 created positions for engineers and architects. We have plantilla positions for engineers and architects as created in ROS Phase 1 po. So that's why it will defeat the purpose of creating these positions if we will not be able to tap the expertise of our local engineers. At the same time, even DPWH is admitting that they lack the technical, the number of technical persons who can attend to this additional burden on their side. Madam Chair, thank you.
We're happy that within the 1 year period, this is already being brought to our attention and documented so that we can do something about it. Kasi sadly, sometimes, it takes 3 years before you can conclusively tell us that this doesn't look like a good thing. Now, we're seeing it right away, so we can be more decisive about it, no? But I do need you to submit. Let's not make it anecdotal. Let's really make it evidence-based so that we can have a strong case for this.
Alam na this talaga.
Madam Chair, also to report the efforts of Congress, we present the same in Congress. And the Office of Chair Margo, even after our meeting like this, the day after called DPWH, USEC of DPWH sat with us and share with us their experience also with SUCs. There are some wins in some SUCs because I presented there are 13 of our SUCs. But in the discussion, I could say, really, silently, they are also admitting that this cannot be done until the end of the year, the remaining. So I think the good chair, I think Chair Mark is also supporting us in this request. And this was brought to their attention loudly, and it was discussed even with DPWH, just to report po the development. Thank you po.
Thank you. Let's move on. You were
On my last slide, Madam Chair, and in closing, 113 SUCs achieved our identified priorities. And we are thankful. It is with great appreciation and gratitude to the Senate for consistently recognizing our shared concerns and for its efforts to increase the budget of SUCs year after year. We ask for your continued support to empower us to actively contribute the national agenda for development by ensuring sufficient funding for SUCs. Help us become key players in the Matatag agenda by developing and pursuing globally competitive and inclusive higher education. We pray for the approval of the SUC's budget as reflected in the NEP amounting to 113.75 billion pesos and for additional budget that the good Senate may provide to help us accomplish our priorities. All anchored in our mission to provide accessible and quality higher education towards transformative future. On behalf of 113 SUCs, Madam Chair, please accept our sincerest thanks and gratitude. Let us give the Chair and our Senate a big round of applause. And even bigger.
O, anong nangyari? Tapos na siyang mag-ano. Ayan.
Ang response ko lang dyan is yung budget ng 2024 that I shared with the strong support of this gentleman and the now Secretary of DepEd, our former chairperson, was the highest budget that the SUCs ever returned. Yun lang ang sagot ko sa inyo.
See, dinagdagan nila.
Okay.
Ano?
So we'll call now on UP, President Gigil Jimenez. The floor is yours.
May I request for the slide, please?
May slide din siya. Patay kang bata ka.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Do we have slides? Okay. Here we go. In the interest of time, we have limited to 6 slides, but of course, we can discuss all the other data. The detailed ones have already been submitted to the subcommittee. So, looks like a nice looking slide here. I could proceed if habol na lang natin slides. Okay.
Sige, habulin mo na lang yung slides.
What we are to just preliminary again. The University of the Philippines has 8 constituent universities under it, and 1 autonomous college, that is UP Tacloban College, that became autonomous only last year, and 1 national university hospital, which is the Philippine General Hospital, and 10 extension campuses, which includes UP Diliman in Pampanga, Diliman in Olongapo, UP Bonifacio Global City, UP Manila School of Health Sciences in Baler, in Palo, in Tarlac, and in Coronadal, South Cotabato, UP Visayas Satellite Campus in Pandan, UP Professional Schools under UP Cebu in South Road, that's SRP in Cebu, and the PGH New Clark City Sports and Wellness Medical Center. We are planning 6 future campuses. They're all in the works, actually. 1 is in UP Dasmariñas. We just had a groundbreaking. 1 is in Barangay Santa Elena, Tacloban, Leyte, which it's a 200-hectare lot. We are moving there because it is considered safe in terms of geohazards, given that our campus was hit hard by the Haiyan storm about a decade ago. And then we have UP New Clark Center in Capas, Tarlac, and the one that's already almost it's under construction. The one in Panabo City, our professional school in agriculture and entrepreneurship in Panabo. 1 in Pandan, again, and in the planned UP Archipelagic and Oceans Virtual University, which we're hoping to launch, if not late this year, early next year. So these are, next slide, please. We have about 71 research institutes in the university. 30 of them are national institutes or centers. This is headlined by the UP system, the Philippine Genome Center, which has been heavily utilized during the fight against the COVID pandemic. And then under Diliman, you have the National Institute for Science and Mathematics, National Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology, National Institute of Physics, Natural Sciences Research Institute, National Geological Sciences, Marine Science Institute, it's a super institute, then National Center for Transport Studies, and then the National Hydraulic Center. In UP Manila, we have the National Institutes of Health. There are 15 other institutes inside these super institutes. It's there in your slide. Maybe you can read it. I will skip reading them all. But these are very, very important critical health research institutes serving the country today. And we have the Philippine General Hospital. Under the Philippine General Hospital, we have the National Poison Management and Control Center. In Los Baños, we have the Molecular Biology and Biotechnology Research, the Dairy Training Research, and National Crop Protection, and the very famous Institute of Plant Breeding. And in the UP Visayas, that's the National Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology. So these are 30 national, these are state, these are not just university-wide, these are national institutes housed under the University of Philippines system. Next slide, please. This is our, in a nutshell, in just one picture, a snapshot of our budget since 2022, 23, 24, and 25. That's the NEP. Let me just invite your attention to the NEP here, which is from 2024 to 2025. In terms of PS, we have increased in terms of NEP to 738 million. That's 5% increase. In terms of MOOU, we have a 2.42% increase over last year. This dropped in 2020-24, but it increased again in 25 in the NEP. And then we have an increase of 289.48% with capital outlays in the 2024-2025 NEP. That would be the only significant factor there. But let me go to the GAA. Our GAA, we have here you go. In 2024, there was an increase of 508 million in the total budget of UP from GAA 2023. That's 2.05% increase. This is mainly due to increase in the capital outlay of 1.381 billion from GAA 2023 to GAA 2024. And increase was also noted from GAA 2023 to GAA 2024 for PS allocations in the amount of 418 million or 2.81%. While for the MOE budget, there was a decrease in the allocation in the amount of 1.291 billion or 18.91%. This can be further broken down by academic units and PGHs. There was an increase in the total budget allocation for academic units of 1.037 billion or 5.85%, while a decrease in the allocation for PGH was noted in the amount of 528 million or 7.51%. This has already been returned in the current NEP. The comparative table showing the budget under GA 2023 and 2024 with breakdown as to academic units are presented here. The most significant insight here is that PGH is basically, it would run from 28% historically to 32%, or 1/3 of the UP budget is PGH alone. And the PGH services 700,000 patients a year before COVID. It was reduced during COVID because you cannot enter. I mean, it was restricted because of the pandemic. But this year we already have about 400,000 as of, and it is positioned to break the 700,000 patients. But the most important perhaps characterization of the kind of this data is not in the data itself. The diseases are more serious than observed before, and they are increasing. We will exceed the 700,000 mark this year. So thank you. And okay, the utilization rate. This is our budget utilization rate. This is 2024. We have 2023, 88%. That was last year. Compared to disbursement, 81%. And 77% for UPPGH to 82%. So a total of 85.45% obligation rate as opposed to 81.72% disbursement rate. As of June 30 this year, it's 38% for the academic units and 38% for, or roughly the same for the PGHs. We have a more efficient disbursement rate as far as academic units. and the PGH itself at 61%. But as of this moment, we believe that this figure is already approaching 80% in terms of obligation rate as of this, because this was June 30. And we have a slew of project startups during the last 3 months. So that is in a nutshell our budget. And second, can we go to the next slide, please? World University ranking, we are 336 in US. This was an increase, a big jump from 2024. These are the others, but please focus only on the University of the Philippines, please. So I don't get into trouble with our friends from the private sector. But let me explain the World University rankings. There has been a drop, and the reason for this was before they included the research conducted in the Philippine General Hospital. During this year, when we had a drop, they removed PGH from us, and including the research there, because they treated it as a different institutions. We have already made representation that the PGH has always been a part of the University of the Philippines. Also, these two ranking agencies, US World is focused more on reputation, academic reputation, and industry representation of our graduates. It's 30 to 40%. Whereas in the University World Rankings, it's 30% research and 30% citations. This is more heavily concentrated on research. And when they took away PGH, which is a research powerhouse of the university, it's reflected in the drop of our rankings. It will soon be corrected. Thank you very much. This is just it.
Tapos na. Good.
Okay, let me just cite you since I was told to be strictly under 8 minutes, but I think I have a few more minutes. Let me just add.
Go ahead. You can take a few more minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm happy to note that UP is now truly a public school. In 2022, the number of qualifiers for UP from public schools is 44%. In 2023, it jumped to 50%. This year's UPCAT shows we are already 56% from public schools, public high schools. So it is no longer true na Burgess and UP, according to SOCMED. The distribution of public schools is this: 44% private schools, 27% public science high schools, and 29% general public high schools lang po. So 56% already come from public high schools in the country today. Now,
Ibig sabihin,
the reason for this are twofold. This year, we opened UPCAT testing centers in all provinces, 115 in all.
ayun.
4 of them are in NCR because it's just too big. And also, this made it access possible for many students who before had no access because of sheer geographical challenges. Also, we already no longer extract or demand fees for taking the UPCAT. It's already free. The UP, we already showed that with our own budget. The other thing is that we introduced associate in arts degree, and in order to take care of those students who, because of disadvantaged high school, cannot compete in the UPCAT because UPCAT is blind to your high schools, whether you're an elite high school or an ordinary high school. So we're opening associate in arts degree. These are 2-year certificate degrees, and that serves as an UPCAT. Their general weighted average in 2 years will serve as this UPCAT. If they meet the standard, they can proceed to a regular bachelor's degree after 4 years, after the second year. So this is one of our innovations when it comes to increasing access. Also, there's an average of about 1,400 students a year who pass the UPCAT, the very difficult UPCAT, who did not proceed to UP, and 40% said because they have no money. And so this year, we opened a new program called Lingat Aral. For these students, qualifiers from GIDA, or Geographically Isolated and Disadvantaged Area, we are providing them 90% subsidy for food, allowance for food, 90,000 pesos a year for food, 30,000 for dormitories or dorm, and 10,000 for communications and 10,000 for transportations. And we already have about 100 beneficiaries from this, and this mattered a lot in terms of changing the complexion of the student composition in terms of social background. The other thing that we introduced is the UP Vinta, or Ventures in International Transformative Academia. We are opening this program in the UAE, in Qatar, in Japan, in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, in Singapore, and Thailand. 7, I hope we already opened in Taiwan and Japan and Thailand and Hong Kong and UAE. The idea of UP Vinta is to offer free online education to OFWs who did have a degree. It includes as well micro-credentials. The idea is for the Filipinos who want to upgrade their careers overseas, they can avail of free, if they're Filipinos, up to PhD degrees. But the idea is this: we want to move masses of OFWs from lower paying jobs to higher paying jobs, from higher risk jobs to lower risk jobs, and reduce the cost of welfare services, because it has been proven that the better job, higher paying jobs are lesser in terms of risk. And also, we want to help increase the number of remittances, which at last count is already 38 billion a year. That's about 10% of our budget. And so this is the grand scheme for UP Vinta, if it works. And it offers practically a program where cost marginally approaches zero because it's all online. So this is one of our initiatives to advance the national interest through OFW protection and nurture. The other one is, among our other, we have submitted it already, our list of achievements, Madam Chair, but I would like to mention that during the Typhoon Karina 3 weeks ago, our project NOAA under UP Resilience Institute has already an application or flood maps where you can determine where the floods are coming. During Typhoon Karina was when Manila was flooded. Our applications developed in UP got 2.6 million requests for downloads, and the feedback really from the population, it has really been a great public service to many people, because you can drive around Manila and plot your route based on the signals that you will get from your flood map. And this is a project of UPRI under our Dr. Mahar Lagmay. And then we have a massive online course. We have established MOOCs, massive open online courses, and one of them is the Basics of Resilience, where in its first offering, 11,000 students were admitted from the entire sector of Philippine society, from civil society organizations, NGOs, NGAs, local government units, and academics. And this shows that in terms of resilience and climate adaptation and disaster risk mitigation, there is increasing interest in the entire spectrum of our society. And also, I already mentioned the PGHs. And among the projects, what we would like to do is precision medicine. We have requested in the budget a budget for 5,000 test sequencing, 5,000 Filipinos to be sequenced every year for 5 years from all ethnicity. That is 25,000 to determine the Filipino genome. This is in terms of sequencing the Filipino genome. This has very significant impact on not just national identity and national identity building, but as well as on health, because there is a partner project here on determining the Filipinos based on the gene sequences of our different ethnicities, and comparative to those who are healthy and sick, we can introduce precision medicine in the country, which is going to reduce the health costs. I do not have the figures on how to reduce, but because this is still a project, but we are trying to determine the propensity of Filipinos based on their ethnic identities, based on the sequencing of their genes from some of the most popular killer diseases in the Philippines, which includes hypertension, diabetes, cancer, particularly. I would stop there, Madam Chair. Um, I have a list, and thank you very much for your time.
Buti na lang.
Like I said, I'll ask my questions later, but in the interest of just completing the UP presentation, can I ask Dr. Gap to just give us any updates on PGH, and then we'll go in. I'll give the floor to the senators present.
Thank you, Madam Chair and honorable members of the Senate. I think I'd like to start by saying that PGH is probably a case study for the basic principle of development follows money. So we've been fortunate to have been granted very generous budgets in the last 9 years that I've been director. And I'd like to just make mention that the budget of PGH now is enough to make everything free for patients. From the basic care to the most expensive interventions that we can do, and it has also allowed us to have substantial savings and income at the end of the year to flow back to the patients and to construct and to buy more equipment, which now adds credence to the fact that maybe health is really a good investment for our country. Just to give you a few examples of this, a patient, imagine a market vendor along in Paco suffering a heart attack, goes to the ER of PGH. In the same hour, she will be in the cath lab and she'll have a stent in her heart. And she will not spend a single centavo. So that's how it is now. And I think it is being done all over the country by our hospitals, also well supported by this new fiscal management. I think the highlights of the last few years in terms of services will be down to the fact that the more expensive interventions, which are also important, are now available to our indigent patients. That's in conjunction with our basic philosophy of running government hospitals of health equity. Just examples, the first patient of robotic surgery in PGH was on a jeepney driver. We're now able to give cochlear implants to children who never had hearing before, which costs around 1 million pesos per implant. We are now able to implant deep brain stimulation unit devices to patients with lubag or the X-linked dystonia of Panay, a very unique Filipino disease. And also, we are able to do all the advanced diagnostic tests. We just opened the first government-procured PET CT scan in the country 2 months ago. And there's a growing list of interventions for our patients to make it more convenient for them. A breast cancer patient now can have her tumor taken out during surgery, and at the same time have radiation exposed in the operating table, lessening the need to go for radiation after surgery. We have the only one in the country and maybe only 2 centers in Southeast Asia, which is a center of excellence, the high-intensity focused ultrasound device that is now attracting even foreign patients to PGH. We just did the first Australian pilot who came to PGH as part of our medical tourism program also to have this treatment.
What kind of treatment?
The impact of mental health is also being addressed. We just installed the first transcranial magnetic stimulator equipment that sends electromagnetic waves to the brain to allow patients with depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, and even addiction have a faster healing time. We are not only expanding our services, but of course even research, which is our also mandate and teaching. Because of the support, Madam Chair and the honorable senators, PGH has now increased its research output from 300 papers to more than 600 a year. And I think more importantly, we are now publishing from a low 8% per year in 2016 to 81% now. So I guess that contributes to the total research output of the university. We have eliminated also the pharmaceutical support for doctors That's my personal advocacy. So now, because of the funds that we have, PGH pays for research presentations of our doctors abroad and training. No, they don't have to ask, when they attend a conference, they don't have to be sponsored by drug companies anymore. So I think that helps, in the proper upbringing of our residents. And we have been successful in getting more uh, plantilla items from the DBM-DOH plantilla staffing pattern. For the first time, having salaries for our fellows, MO4s, and midwives. No? Since the history of PGH, never have our midwives had salaries corresponding to their professional status. No? The our training component also is being partnered with DOH, being a training hospital. We have opened our programs to affiliate trainees from DOH, wherein they bring their salary with them when they train in PGH, and they have a contract that they should go back to their province of origin or hospital origin after their training. And this is all part of the universal healthcare partnerships that we have all over. In fact, we just piloted what we call a task sharing answer to the problems of manpower. In Batanes, they have a CT scan, they have an MRI, but they don't have a neurosurgeon. So if you suffer a stroke or have a serious head injury, ang tawag nga ng doktor doon Doc, ano lang kami, OOTD. Ano ho yung OOTD? OTD, observed to death na lang ho kami. So we piloted this year what we call an outcome-based neurosurgical training, emergency neurosurgery training, wherein they sent a general surgeon. He spent 4 months with us, and I personally assisted his surgeries just to make sure he's learning the right technique and the right way to diagnose patients. And today, well, there's a typhoon. He's supposed to go back to Batanes and start operating if needed under our supervision through telemedicine, because Batanes has Starlink now. So I think that's one thing that improved also their ability for telemedicine. So these are all part of our participation in the Universal Healthcare Program. And I think the next step will really be expanding PGH to be available to other regions, starting with our new Clark City facility, which is now posed to be the Sports and Wellness Medical Center in that area, having its location near the sports arena and the water arena. And you'll be happy to note, Madam Chair, that we are servicing the 200 student athletes we have in the National Sports Academy for their health needs. UP Diliman will have a PGH Diliman, and we are getting numerous offers for joint venture project proposals. I'm leaving tonight to go to the UAE to present to the King the project in PGH Carmona, which will be the Occupation and Industrial Hospital of that area, and will be the first truly advanced government center in the Calabar zone. So these are just some of the developments that have been happening in the last 9 years. And before I end, may I just make another plea for another state university, which is the West Visayas State University Hospital. You see, Madam Chair and Honorable Senators, there are only 2 state university hospitals in the country, truly designated as one, PGH and WSUH. We are not under DOH. So we get our funding from the universities where we are attached with. PGH is just lucky that, it is an old institution and a national institution when it started. But think of a small hospital, 300-bed hospital like West Visayas State University. He also aims to train and teach the future doctors and the future specialists, grappling for funds because it has nowhere to go but the funding of CHED. And also, there is no definite budget that DOH gives to the state university hospitals from the sin taxes that we pay. So I'm having known that we will soon have maybe 20 or 30 colleges of medicine. I think it's really important for us to think of developing a track for state university hospitals. I remember in the hearings, Madam Chair, of the Dr. Para sa Bayan Act, I think it was Senator Villanueva who pointed out that the state university hospitals should major hospitals, which will be training hospitals. I think that's going to happen soon. And since state university hospitals are not part of the DOH Health Facilities Development Program because they're not under them, I think it's time to start our own track of development for state university hospitals. Because when all of these med schools are up, we have to make sure that the hospitals that they train in are standard. They're all either Harvard or Stanford or NUH standard at least, so that we are putting out the same medical students or the same resident students wherever they are in the country. PGH has no monopoly on intelligence or good intentions. I think if we band together, and I've had meetings with Dr. Helito of West Visayas State Universities. I think it's a reality that will happen soon when the medical colleges are up and running already. Just to prove to you a point, Palawan State University School of Medicine doesn't have a tertiary hospital. So they were given approval because they're going to go to PGH for their clinical years. So I think that kind of a system we have to start developing also soon. So maraming salamat po at sa aking 9 na taon na pagsisilbi bilang direktor ng PGH, natutunan ko na hindi po pala masamang mangarap dahil nagkakatotoo ang iba sa kanila. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you for that. I'll save my questions for later. So on that note, we'll proceed with Senator Gatchalian's question.
Di ba, Ma'am
followed by
Chairman,
Senator
nagtagtag sila
Joel
ng
Villanueva.
nagtagtag sila ng mga hospitals under itong kay PBBM na administration.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Madam Chairperson, I'll start off with CHED, and I was looking at the slides earlier of CHED, and let me request the committee secretary to or the admin to flash slide 29. I took note of the comments of Chair De Vera that enrollment has, tama po ba, Chairman, reached an all-time high
From public
of 47% participation rate. Can we request the ComSec to flash that slide? Slide 29 of CHED slide. Yeah.
Yes, Madam Chair, the participation rate was about 32% prior to COVID. It started increasing after the free higher education. It's
So-
now at 47.4 participation rate.
So 47.4 college age
Yes.
college age
Individuals,
individuals
yes,
are
are
now
enrolled.
in college.
Yes,
Oh,
are
and this
enrolled
is prior to free higher education is 32%. So it went up. And I also saw in the next slide that the Philippines now has one of the highest, at least in Southeast Asia, in terms of graduation ratio. Tama po ba? So the definition of this is 56% who went into college in the first year graduated. Tama po ba?
Yeah, in their first degree.
In their first degree.
Yeah.
Okay. And is this also a function of the free higher education, Chairman?
Actually, Madam Chair, our observation is that TES and tulong-dunong grantees have a higher graduation rate than the general. for TES and tulong-dunong, it goes up to about 78%. 78.38% for those who are getting free higher education, and 77% for tulong-dunong grantees. So if government subsidizes them, their chances of completing actually goes higher.
Okay, wala yun sa slide eh. I think that's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
very good piece of information.
Yeah.
Tama po ba 78% for TES?
No, 78% for those who are recipients of free higher education.
Okay.
Meaning yung hindi na nagbabayad ng tuition and miscellaneous fees.
Okay.
And 77% for tulong-dunong grantees, and 79% for TES grantees.
79% for test.
Yeah.
This is graduation ratio.
Yes, our graduation.
Okay, and then
rates.
obviously if you look at the nationwide scale, beyond pre-higher education, TS and tulong-dulong, it goes down
Yeah.
to 56%.
Yes.
So in other words, Chairman, the subsidies that we are giving our students enables them to graduate. Is that the findings?
At higher levels than their counterparts who are not getting as much subsidy as they are.
Okay, because there, I remember there was a fear that because we're giving them subsidies, they might take it for granted, and there is a tendency of dropping out in the middle of the course. So we're not seeing that phenomenon at all.
Yeah, but Madam Chair, there is a rather bad data also that the highest attrition is at third year and fourth year.
Okay.
For the students. Doon sila pinaka nahihirapan because that is where their expenses for OJT, internship, related learning experiences starts to kick in for their thesis, etc. Pinakamataas ang attrition rate at the third year in particular and fourth year.
The attrition is due to financial expenses?
In the survey that we run, although it does not cover all the SUCs, but it covers many of them, the number one reason indicated by the students was financial difficulty.
And
It's still financial difficulty.
Okay, so is that being addressed moving forward, Chairman? Because maganda na yung ating graduation rate for the other subsidy programs eh. No, so of course if there's a problem with attrition in the third and fourth year, of course the response to that is are we attending to that problem?
It can be done in two ways, Madam Chair. The one is we increase the grant of government for TES and tulong-dunong. We increase the amount, that is one. But the fiscal impact is quite significant given that the number of TES and tulong-dunong grantees is about 600,000 individuals already. So when you compute it, the cost is high. The other one is we are now telling the SUCs to track the students who come in, especially those coming from lower income households, from poverty, and help them along the way so that they continue year in, year out. For example, some of our schools, like University of Eastern Philippines, is providing free lunch for students who are relatively poorer. The SUCs have to review their policies on student assistantship, on dormitories, etc. Kasi kung may magandang dorm yung SUCs at priority yung mga mahihirap na estudyante, mababawasan yung cost of pamasahe, which is quite high, especially in rural areas. Some of the costs that the students bear can be reduced by affirmative action programs of our state universities and colleges. That's why we organized 50 SUCs who are committed to start reviewing their admission policy and start reviewing their policies to try to keep the students as long as possible in school and help them graduate. Tapos yung dulo, Madam Chair, yung free review class na ginagawa ng UPLB. I think this is a game changer because we found out when I went to Sulu State College that the reason why the passing rate for agriculture is very low is because there's no review center in Sulu. They have to go to Zamboanga to do a review, and it's every week. So the cost, aside from the payment for the review, is high for travel, for boarding house, etc. Where in fact, they have a very good IT laboratory because we gave them a state-of-the-art IT facility. They're connected now via satellite, so malakas yung signal. So sabi namin, ba't hindi gumawa ng online na review class yung UP Los Baños para doon sa schools na malalayo, walang review center, mababa ang passing rate, at saka walang access yung mga estudyante to other areas. And UP Los Baños has completed the first cohort of 950 agriculture students. They just finished the review class, I think last weekend. We can expand this to cover other areas like nursing. West Visayas State University can take a leadership role in developing an online review class since their nursing passing rate is 100%. We can do that for teacher education. We can do that for forestry and vet med, which are expertise of UP Los Baños. We just need the SOCs to stand up and take a leadership role in this. There's a lot that can be done because technology is already available. So madami pong pwedeng intervention na the cost is manageable. Because yung review program ng UP Los Baños, ang binayad ng CHED is less than 1 million pesos na grant. But they're reviewing 950 students. You compute 950 students times 15,000 or 10,000 na payments sa review. It's much more than the cost that is done. Kayang i-manage yung cost by the use of technology. So the SOC should invest in technology. They should invest in these systems, and we will mobilize UP. UP Los Baños has committed to do a similar review program for forestry and vet med. And I know that West Visayas has committed to do it for nursing. Sana ba yung West Visayas? Ayaw na yatang tumayo. Nursing ba o teacher ed yung kinumit ng West Visayas? And then sa fisheries, MSU Naawan and ISOFIST have said they will prepare a proposal for fisheries review, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Popoy. And I'm happy to take note that all of our subsidy programs, the FIA education, the TEST, the Tulong-Dulong, is now equating to higher graduation ratios. And that means to say that government investment, kasi investment siya is now yielding to returns in the form of diplomas for our students. And I also took note, Chair Popoy, please flash nga. Yeah, go ahead.
No, if you're still talking about the attrition rate, can I interject about the attrition? I'm glad that you made mention about it because I'm looking at the data that was given to this representation, and looking at the data, an alarming number of college students drop out of college. For example, in batch 2021 registered a 40.6 attrition rate, while batch 2022 registered a 39.3 attrition rate. So CHED previously announced in February of 2024 that it has launched a research initiative. And I saw this program in Ilocos, Region 1, Eastern Visayas, Region 8, Soc-Sargen, Region 12. This is to identify the challenges and interventions to address the attrition rate of students. But if you look at the totality, it appears now that at least 4 out of 10 students in higher education either temporarily or permanently left school last academic year 2022 to 2023. Now, if you go to another slide, table 5, of the 17 regions, BARM posted the highest attrition rate at 93.4%. 7 out of the 17 regions posted attrition rates of more than 50%. So these are CAR, Western Visayas, Central Visayas, Zamboanga Peninsula, BARM, Soc-Sargen, and NCR. So my only question that I'd like to ask, yung binanggit niyo po kanina, Sir Popoy, yung primary reason is financial. may iba pa ba, and what steps are being undertaken by the commission to address this issue? Perhaps yung binabanggit nyo kanina, and I'm glad that you're talking about it, yung I don't know if it's some kind of a retention program being implemented now by CHED to help our college students from dropping out of school. Is that what it is? And I thought it would be interesting to pound on it and let our SUCs also, most especially our SUCs, to implement such program. Sir, please.
Thank you. Yung data ng 21, 22, and 23 kasi is a little different because nag-COVID eh. The highest attrition rate was really right after COVID, and we cannot, control that. Yun kaya umabot ng 40+%. But the latest attrition rate is now, I think, in the high 20s. Yeah, which is actually comparable with other countries in the region and the world. So bumababa na. Yung COVID talagang madaming tumigil, madami talagang nahirapan. And in the other reasons that you mentioned in our survey, top 5 reasons for stopping, number 1 is financial difficulty in terms of transportation, clothing, food, internet fees, graduation fees. The second one is family problem. The third one is relocation. And then there's an emerging reason, which is medical mental health concerns that we did not expect this previously. It's coming out. And then panglima lang yung academic difficulty. So mental health concerns is higher as a reason for stopping than academic difficulty. So it's not really because they're having difficulty studying, but their mental health has really been affected. So,
Mr. Chairman, in that particular case, do we have a program, for example, a counseling program that will encourage our learners to take alternative modes of learning instead, such as you made mention a while ago, different programs, courses, trade disciplines. You also have tech book courses. We just recently passed the ETEAP bill on third and final reading. This is the expanded tertiary education and the equivalency and accreditation program. And of course, we thank Senator Gatchalian, Senator Cayetano for being so supportive about it. So I just thought that would help in our initiatives to address this situation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have 2 projects ongoing now on mental health. We are working with Miriam College to roll out training of guidance counselors in schools, and also the support staff on how to identify mental health concerns. And we have a project with Unilab, because they have a toolkit already on mental health, which we are rolling out to the schools.
By the way, what's our current ratio of students to guidance counselors in the higher education? That's probably a good question to raise. And everyone's laughing here and reacting unconvincingly.
Mr. Chair, it is not very good, but we are better off than basic and secondary education. The problem is worse in basic and secondary. In higher ed, there are guidance counselors. Our problem, aside from the really difficult law that requires somebody to get a master's before they take the licensure, I hope our senators will amend that law as fast as possible. Aside from that problem, ang guidance counseling kasi susuks is like a dead-end career because it is an administrative position, salary grade 11. That once you get there, there is no more career progression. You have a master's. What is happening is that the people who have guidance counselor degrees start off as guidance counselor, and then they move to become faculty members. Kasi sa faculty members, then they can get promoted as professors from assistant to full. So they stop becoming guidance counselors because they are now regular faculty members. What the SUKs do is they deload these people and make them part-time guidance counselors. So the SUKs are trying to find imaginative ways of continuing guidance counseling, but the salary grade is quite low and the career progression is basically non-existent because it's a admin position. So aalis yung guidance counselor. So it's difficult to produce guidance counselors, and those who are in the SUCs start moving over to become faculty members. But as I said, we're probably in a better situation than basic and secondary education by the sheer number of students in basic and secondary compared to the number of students in tertiary educations, Mr. Chair.
Just hoping, Chairman Popoy, that we can at least get a figure. Sample, even the year numbers in terms of enrollees and graduates of courses related to mental health services, for example, psychology and other disciplines like that.
A table, Mr. Chair, that we can submit. It's
Please,
here, no?
pasubmit na lang. Sige
Yeah.
po.
Yeah,
Oo.
pero basically, only 43 higher education institutions offer a program in guidance and counseling compared to 298 for psychology, 259 for communication. There are more HCIs offering sociology than guidance and counseling. So because there are fewer HCIs, the enrollment is actually lower than most other programs, and therefore the number of graduates is also lower. Yeah.
Let me just put into the records last na, Sen. Sherwin, thank you for giving time to this representation. Again, I just wanted to put on record, mental health is among top 5 reasons for dropping out of school. Yung sabi po ng Young Adult Fertility and Sexuality Study based in their 2021 report, close to 1 in 5 Filipino youth aged 15 to 25 have considered ending their life. By analogy, for basic education, the DepEd has around 2,000 guidance counselors for 28 million learners as of January of 2023. And I'm glad that higher education has better figures. But let me also, one last thing that I'd like to point out, this representation is one of the authors of Senate Bill number 2598, or the SUC's Mental Health Services Act, which establishes mental health offices in all SUC campuses. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Win.
Thank you.
And just one last point. There are actually regions in the Philippines where there is no university offering guidance and counseling. So you can imagine how challenging it would be to produce guidance counselors. In our data, Region 2, Region 9 have no HCIs offering guidance and counseling. So it's something that the Commission is trying to look into, but we hope that Congress would amend the law fast enough so we can produce more guidance counselors.
Tapos na siya. Thank you, Tatay Jack, for tapos na.
Chairman Popoy. So one of the things I worked on with the chairman of the Committee on Education was how to fast track these courses that we are in dire need of. And one of the ideas we had, and it's not just for guidance counselors, but we've recommended it in other areas, is that you use similar degrees. So it could be an education degree, it could be a psychology degree, and then have a short track, I don't know if that's 12 units, 18 units, and then we call them, what do we call them? Counselor? School counselor associates. Kasi kung yung peer group nga lang have shown to have major effects, what more itong professional naman in a related field, education, psychology, social work, whatever, all of which have shortages also in some way or another, but using that. So can you fast track that? Wag sana yung PQF na 10 taon wala pa rin.
No. Madam Chair, we're very interested to be part of the initiative, but we've got to bring PRC on board and the civil service on board because guidance and counseling has a licensure requirement for for hiring into government positions. So
Yeah.
dadaan sa
Yeah, but
PRC.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. But for your information, it's a different title now. It's a, sorry, I keep forgetting. School Counselor Associate.
Ayun.
So wala siyang board exam. Oo. So I think sa inyo na 'yan. Sa
Yeah,
type na
yeah,
yan.
we can do that. The other track, Madam Chair, is what we're doing with the nursing program now. We have an enhanced master's program in nursing that recognizes prior learning and experience to be evaluated. So they don't take all the units in the master's program, so that we have more faculty teachers.
So since you've done it already,
Yeah.
then in 1 month you can do this. It's
Uh,
done.
We'll have to
Okay.
talk with the experts, Madam Chair. But yes, we will work
Let's
on it.
get it done.
Yeah, yung enhanced masters naman natapos namin in 2 months. We are able to
Kaya
do it
nga.
in 2 months. Baka naman
Oh, yeah.
kaya din gawin ito
Kaya.
ng mas maiksi.
Okay, thank you. Sige, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chair Popoy, just submit to the committee. Well, we just want, we suggest to look at the attrition issues at the 3rd and 4th tier. And again, I'm happy to note that our subsidy programs are yielding higher graduation rates. And we just need to address challenges, especially when they reach 3rd year and 4th year. And you mentioned earlier that might need bigger budget, no? So just submit to the committee a study on how to address that attrition rate. Of course, what we want is per peso subsidy will yield to higher graduation rates, no? Because it's a subsidy. So in that respect, if we need to tweak the program by focusing some more resources on the 3rd and 4th year, just submit to the committee.
Yes, Madam Chair, we will do that. We'd also like to inform the Senate that the study that we commissioned for Region 1, Region 8, and Region 12, we will have preliminary results already before the end of the year. This is to look at admission profiles of students who take the admission test, who are those that are accepted, what admission policies should be changed, etc., and an assessment of student programs in the schools in these 3 regions. We have some preliminary data, but I think the preliminary report should be in by the end of the year. So we'll have some more definite data that we really can work at, Madam Chair.
I'll go to that topic later on, Chair Popoy. But I want to show, I was looking at the graduation rates or the student population for the last 10 years. And the good thing that we are seeing, there's an uptrend in terms of enrollment in higher education. I'll just flash on the screen. It's we're now at 5 million, in terms of student enrollment in higher education, of which 2.6 are enrolled in private schools, and 1.9 million are enrolled in SUCs. But we're also seeing a new trend from the LUCs, and I'll go to that later on, in the LUCs. But looking at this slide, it seems to me that the free and the dotted line is the universal, the UACTEA, the implementation of UACTEA. It seems to me that both private and public enrollments are growing, and there was initially a fear that it might the public universities might cannibalize the private universities, but in this case, we are not seeing that phenomenon, and which is a good thing, because both public and private are growing at the same time. Any comment to this, and any based on your analysis, what seems to be the factor contributing to the growth of both the public and the private sector?
Madam Chair, the number one reason why the enrollment is slowing down in SUCs is because of their carrying capacity. They are not accepting as many students as they would want to. If they had better capacity, I think the enrollment will skyrocket more. In most of our SOOCs, the effective admission rate is less than 50% already. I think our presidents will agree with that. Some are in more difficult situation than others. Aside from UP, PUP has very low admission rate now because of the sheer number of applicants. So that is a controlling mechanism. So those who cannot be covered in public universities, you still have the option to go to private universities. I think we need to study the carrying capacity more and maybe look into other options like open distance learning, where we can provide access without necessarily constrained by the physical structure of the universities. That is what they do in other countries in the region. India has 1.9 million students on open distance learning, and Indonesia has close to 1 million students enrolled to open distance learning. So that's an area that the Commission is looking into, whether that can be a way of increasing access so within the constraints. The other reason is the tulong dunong and test is given to both public and private now. So students in private schools also benefit if they are poor, if they belong to listahanan. And the Unifast board has reversed the policy. So priority for listahanan now, priority for tests are the poor students. It's really an equity program now. So whether you're in public or private, if you are tests, you can access the funds, so that helps you in your education. The same with tulong dunong is available for both public and private. So the subsidy of government to those in private schools, I think, is making also a difference in terms of allowing them the opportunity to study.
Can I make an intervention? On the first point that you raised about CHED exploring how to provide access and by way of open distance education. If you recall, around 2 years ago, the discussion we were having is that many of your SUCs were not shifting to full face-to-face with the argument that they have already invested in all of this. Oh, adin na pala eh. So, ba't mahaba pa yung diskusyon? Yun na yun, di ba? Am I wrong? That's what they were attempting to do. They were attempting to offer open education, online education, call it whatever you want to call it. And then they didn't even want to make the shift back to face because ang laki na daw na in-invest, but we insisted, this body insisted. Oh, now you find that as a possible track. And I have always said, go ahead. I just want it properly implemented. If you want to offer a particular course through 75% online, 50% online, 100% online, okay, just don't deceive the parents and the students that it is the same, because it is different. It may be better for somebody like UP mentioned the OFW program. You might have a full-time stay-at-home mother who wants to continue education. That might be the only option of it. It's fine. But call it what it is and implement it. So I don't think it will take you that long to implement it.
Madam Chair, what they are doing is not open distance, it is flexible learning.
Oh, flexible learning.
They want to
okay.
mix face-to-face with some online.
Now, that is
yes,
what they
that's
want
what,
to do now.
Yes, that's what they want to do.
Oh, wasn't that what was happening then?
Actually, I don't know, but most of the SOCs are doing more face-to-face now than
No, I
than
know.
online, yeah.
I'm stating the fact that 2 years ago, the discussion we were having is that the trend was to continue on your online. Merong halos 100%. Merong iba-ibang degree because may teachers na 100% tinuturo nila yung class nila online. Then may teacher na magpapapasok ng konti. That's it. That's what it is. That's what it is. So I'm saying that ang dami nyo ng mix na ganon, pwede mo na ngayong i-roll out. And that's what we discussed, diba? We had said, the two of us, in private conversations, that you wanna do it, go ahead, do it, but call it what it is. Is it a study in campus for 3 months and then the rest of the 9 months you're at home learning, or in fact it could be tie-ups with bigger universities, diba? Study in the smaller campuses, study in the smaller in the campus near you, and then you go. Lahat yun option. So I'm
Yeah.
saying hindi tayo starting from zero. All of the SUCs have done it in one way or another. So
Madam Chair.
let's just do it.
The open distance learning that we are pushing is to get the whole degree online, hindi flexible. Open distance learning.
Understood.
Uh,
And what I'm saying
yeah.
is,
They can do it.
a lot of universities were practically doing it. They had subjects that were being taught 100% online. I cannot forget this because this is an argument that I was dealing with for the whole year. Sabi ko, wag niyo akong lokohin na 50% pasok kasi ang nangyayari doon, 50% ng teachers willing. Yung 50 hindi. O di, technically, some subjects were taught 100% online. Di ba?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, you're equipped.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
it.
I agree, but that's why we want to push that to
Kaya
happen
nga.
more.
And I'm pushing
Yeah.
it more.
Okay.
Because I know nga,
Yes.
I'm pushing
Yeah.
it more because I know some nga claimed, unless naglokohan tayo, claimed na the reason that they were stuck, they didn't want to move because they were in a cozy place. They made the investment, it's working. Kaya nga, edi go. Gusto nyo yan. O di make an offer.
Yeah.
Make an offer. And then you can start assessing, have pilot projects. Because you're right, it has been done for many years. I invite all of you to read my committee's committee report, the Sustainable Development Innovation and Futures Thinking Committee report on the future of education. Kasi doon, to make it interesting to layman to it is not a doctoral thesis, okay? So lower your expectation. Gawa lang namin to ng staff ko, but to make it fun reading, we included Archie comic strips wherein pre-pandemic, nag-online studies na sila Betty at si Veronica. Kasi nga, yun na nga yung trend. And there are a lot of studies that show that was already the direction even before the pandemic happened, in anticipation of various changes in life, not just a pandemic, but just like in Africa where there's no access to good education in some areas, they did that. Anyway, nandun na yon, feel free to get a copy and read it. So I fully support. That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you. Go ahead.
In line with that, Chair Popoy, in carrying capacity will demand a lot of investments. No? So it's probably a combination of improving the carrying capacity as well as innovation such as the open distance learning. So again, just submit to us because from what I understand, we've already reached that maximum carrying capacity. But the thing is, we haven't reached our maximum potential. No? That carrying capacity became the barrier to reach the maximum potential. And when I say maximum potential, that means more students accessing higher education and therefore more students graduating with diploma. So this is a good problem in my opinion, no? Because mas maraming estudyante gusto mag-aral. No? Problema na ngayon ng gobyerno maghanap ng paraan para mapag-aral sila. So just submit to, again, the committee looking at this problem, the issue on carrying capacity, taking note the recommendation of our chairperson to make open distance learning as a modality. Dahil nandiyan na yan. I remember the chairperson, she was very passionate in pushing face-to-face learning back after the pandemic. I remember during the budget hearing that was also a point, and at that time the CHED responded with the affirmative decision. So having said that, we want a study so that we can break the barriers, no? And reach our full potential in terms of enrollment. My next question is, of course, the free higher education, the UACTEA, is designed to reach our poorest households. Are we reaching our poorest household in terms of access and in terms of giving them the diploma that they need in order to look for meaningful jobs?
We will know that data once the study of Region 1, 8, and 12 is completed, because that's exactly what we want to find out. To look at those who applied, look at those who qualified, and look at what happened in terms of admission policies. So they can tweak the admission policies to be more affirmative and equity oriented so that the schools can slowly target percentage of students coming from poor households, from far-flung areas, from poorer families. We only have anecdotal evidence across the universities, but we don't have comparable data. So once that study is completed, we will have the data for SUCS in Region 1, 8, and 12. And we will see what are the things that can be done for the admission policies of schools. Some of the schools are experimenting with various admission policies, like USTP decided that they will rank all their qualifiers and admit the poorer ones earlier than the richer ones. That was that was approved by their board of regents. So there are experiments going on in various SUCs, but we don't have that picture now. The data should come in once that study comes out, Mr. Chair. And now we will now guide the other SUCs to tell them what policies can be adopted, what affirmative action, what equity policies can be adopted, so that we target the those in the margins to be brought in, because it's easier to assist them once they are already enrolled. Mas madali ng tutukan. Ang problema, yung barrier is how do you pass the admission requirements of the school?
Will that study be completed, Chairman?
We have some preliminary data, but before the end of the year, we should have significant data already coming from the study.
Alright.
So this is being done by Don Mariano Marcos State University for all the SUCs in Region 1, Samar State University, I think, in Region 8, and University of Southern Mindanao ba? In Region 12. So we should have that data soon, Madam Chair.
Chairman, I saw a report by a study done by Dr. Chat Manasan, and she undertook a study on UACTEA, or free higher education for short. And interestingly, I saw some data that she presented, and she looked at AP's data and looked at the enrollment rates of the different deciles. And she also compared pre-free higher education and also post free higher education. And in her study that we saw, if you look at the poorest decile, no, the poorest, the second decile, and even if you add the third decile, which is the poorest 30%, the enrollment increased dramatically. No? And this is actually what we want to happen with free higher education, making access available to our poorest students. But I also took note that for the highest decile, or the richest decile, 9 and 10, it went down, the enrollment, slightly. No, it went down. No, looking at the slide, and which is also a phenomenon that we want to happen. No? Because of course, the richer students can have other choices. For example, going to private schools or going to other schools. But what we want to focus in are the poorest 30% of our constituents, and for example, in the poorest decile, no, from 1.9% enrollment to 10% enrollment, which is, a dramatic increase. In the second decile, from 5.3% enrollment to 11.8% enrollment. So this is what we want: no more poor students studying in college, availing of the free higher education subsidy that we are giving. Is this the same phenomenon that you are seeing on the ground, whether it's anecdotal or through your conversations with our SUC presidents?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think this validates what our education champions like Senator Gatchalian was saying against the critics of free higher ed before. Because the argument before was that there should be no free higher ed, because if you subsidize free higher ed, you are subsidizing the non-poor more than the poor. That is what some people, some economists were saying. Well, the data is saying that that is not true. I think it is important to put that on note, that our education champions' belief was correct from the dispersed, no? But I think what we have observed on the ground, Madam Chair, is the phenomenon of first generation students and graduates. These are first in the family to enter university and first in the family to graduate from university. That is being tracked by some of our SOOCs already. And in some of our SOOCs, it goes up to more than 50% of their students are first generation students. You can see that in the graduating batch because I asked the first generation students who are graduating to stand up, and you will be amazed by how many would stand up. I think this was not noticed or this was not assumed before, but clearly, as the data shows, the message is quite clear that students or poor students can try to go to university. And in some of, I spoke at the graduation of Davao de Oro State College, and I think 70% of their students are first generation graduates. So it can be very high in some of our SOOCs. So that can be documented easily, Madam Chair, because income profile is required when you take the admission test. So this can be tracked extensively by the schools themselves.
That is included in your study, the one that you mentioned. Tracking
Yes.
that's a phenomenon also that we want to appreciate, and we will be. We recommend that to include that study in your. I mean, to include that phenomenon in your study so that we can take a look at that and use that as an example to promote this program.
It is included, Madam Chair. In the video that we had for the medical schools early this morning, one of the testimonies came from a student of the medical program of MSU Jensen, who is a Tiboli. She is not only a first-generation student, she will be the first doctor in the Tiboli tribe in Lake Cebu if she finishes. She started in her education as a first-generation graduate. She's now into med school. She's now, I think, on a third year. And once she graduates, she will be the first doctor in the whole Tiboli tribe in Lake Cebu in South Cotabato. So hindi lang sa undergrad. Some of them are actually going now into medicine, assisted also by our Doctor para sa Bayan Law. So there are very powerful testimonies of students that are going beyond university. They're into medicine already, Mr. Chair.
I'll make an intervention, no? To add to the discussion. So I'm looking at this data that we have, and this is coming from Pasok, but I'm assuming naman that same naman kayo ng data. In 2022, there was a deficiency for the free higher education budget that the SOOCs were receiving by 3.34 billion, and then nabayaran ng 998 million. So the deficiency is 2.342 million. And then in 2023, the deficiency was 4.4 billion. So far running total yan is 6.7 billion. And then in 2024, Pasok did a survey of the SUCs, and the deficiency is 2.308. Okay? So I'm assuming that's correct because I'm just reading the data that came from Pasok. So what does this mean? I asked my team, no, that has been going back and forth with Pasok, and I have the same team for the last 6 years. So I think we have very good communications with among all of us. This means that PASOK has accepted, not PASOK, sorry, the state universities have accepted students beyond their carrying capacity. So if they will charge per student what they would normally receive, then you total it and this is the amount. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, I think I would like to comment on the carrying capacity.
Okay.
To us, the carrying capacity is the composite of your face-to-face and your online. Mentioning the potential being cited by
sige.
Senator Win.
So what does this mean? This means the physical capacity. Is that what you want to correct?
Yes po. Years back, we allow even online. Most of our students are online. That's why there was a shoot on our enrollment.
Correct. And you brought that up during the hearing. There
Yes
was a
po.
shoot, and this representation commented that you better be careful because I am not sure about the quality of education being delivered. Dahil, syempre, that was a product of necessity, di ba?
Yes po.
And then number two, wag niyong linlangin ng mga parents that it is in fact the same quality because perhaps it is not. Right? But then natanggap nyo na yon. So paano ba yon? Papatapusin nyo ng 4 na taon na online yon or most have shifted to partial online? Ano na status ng mga yan?
Now, Madam Chair, may mga nakagraduate na po. And right after, siguro, after 2022, we gradually shifted to face-to-face.
Full face-to-face.
Opo, opo.
Okay. And just to tie this all in, pag merong gustong mag-offer ng program na ganon, then you just apply properly because mukhang okay naman. Mukhang it fits naman certain profiles. I already mentioned that. We'll leave that. Okay. So,
Madam Chair, siguro
yes.
po, to continue. We don't have really that liberty to allow our students to come online or to enroll online. I don't know if we can request to check the relaxation of that 75-25% that somehow if the 75 is face-to-face and only 25 is online, if we have the capacity, we are exploring the possibility of, let's say, increasing the number of percentage of online. So that's our request. So that it's depending on SUCs. If SUCs have the capability to deliver it online because they have technology, the facility, and even the content, they can, I think, increase the number of online percentage online, Madam Chair. That will include or that will capture our potential. That
Your
will
full
increase.
potential.
Opo. That will increase our carrying capacity. So what we have in our system is our carrying capacity because we cannot accommodate them whether physical or online, if they are not within our carrying capacity. So what I mean is, to sum it up, what we have now is our carrying capacity.
Yes, so this deficiencies that you are requesting to be budgeted is because nga nag-accept kayo ng beyond your carrying capacity.
That's maybe interpreted as beyond the physical,
Beyond the
physical carrying capacity. But we accommodated online, so it expands our potential to accommodate students in our system.
Noted. So, 2 points. The first is a reiteration of what I already said 10 minutes ago. I leave that up to Ched. Hindi ho ako nang hihimasok dun sa areas of expertise nyo. Payag ba ako na 100% online? Pag sinabi mo naman, may full delivery, may accountability, makakapasa ng board, why not? Ayoko lang nung napipilitan kayong tanggapin yon because nga nagka-pandemic, tapos sa pilitan naging ganito. Saka naman nakakita ng med school na online. Pero we didn't have a choice at that time. Pero will I be comfortable with a doctor who malaman ko na yung kanyang training gano'n? No, I won't be comfortable. Gusto ko syempre nakagamit siya nung simulators na binili natin, tapos na training siya. Anyway, I made my point. I don't object. I just want it to be maayos. You can lobby all you want and I won't support it if hindi pa ayos yung ano tawag mo doon, yung lahat ng kailangang pagdaanan para ma-ensure tayo that the parents are getting the value of their child's time and energy studying. Unless Ched tells me that maayos na tong program to because there is such a thing. It does exist. I have no problem. Actually, that's my law. The open, what's the full name of that law? Open distance learning. That's my law. So, in case I've given anyone the wrong impression, I'm not against it. I just like it to follow the rules. Okay? Let's move on. Sayang ng oras. Okay na ako dyan as long as maayos and that law, President Gigil appoints UP as the, how did I say it? Basta, kayo yung nagdidirect nun because you have the experience. This is years before the pandemic. Inumpisahan na yan. So, do what you have to do to make that available. But, and that wasn't even my point. It's just that binanggit nyo. So, I have to wrap that up. The other point that I want to make is, and I need the numbers. The other point I want to make is, there is clearly a demand for more students to study. and the physical structure. And when you say physical, or even the digital, kasi bibili ka ng gamit, tapos kunyari you can accommodate 1,000 more students. Yeah, but you have to have a laboratory. The teacher has to have, wag naman yung iPhone lang or kung anong, di ba kailangan maayos yung setup na yun para effective yung delivery. So you still have to invest in that. My point is, because I'm tying it in, this was an intervention, remember, so it is related to the point of my colleague. I always want I am one of those who is always concerned that the poorest of the poor might be deprived. Okay? May be deprived. Clearly. Kung 10 kami dito, yung 8 may kaya, yung 2 hindi, pero equally, walang distinction. Tapos biglang hanggang 8 lang yung budget. O di, kung napunta sa 9 at 10 yung 2 mahirap, di nakapasok yung mas mayaman. It's obvious. So my point is, clearly, dito sa deficiency nyo, thousands of students wanted to study. And ilan dyan ang mahirap? Yun lang yung point ko. Ilan dyan lang dyan ang mahirap? Obviously, mas limited ang kanilang capability. Mas limited ang options nila. Why? I go back to my advocacy. Some of you SUCs have already been beneficiaries. Dormitories. Doon pa lang sa dorm na walang titirhan, kung wala siyang kamag-anak sa city, tapos na. Wala na siyang titirhan. Oh, hindi na siya makakaaral. So, yun lang naman yung point that I wanted to make. That I am a proponent of ensuring that the poorest of the poor get priority because less ang options nila. Yun lang yun. Yung mayaman, baka may kotse, baka may pamasahe pang sakay ng bus, baka may budget pang dormitory, may budget pang boarding house. Yung mahirap nga, wala. Yun lang. That's the only point I want to make in this discussion. Kaya kailangan yung studies lang natin maayos because I firmly believe na may nadideprive pa rin na mahirap. Yun ang paniniwala ko. And I don't think there's any study that will convince me na hindi nadideprive ang mahirap hanggat may mga mayaman na mas nakakakuha nun. Yun lang yung point ko. Okay? We can go back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I just want to show the body. I came across this article during the DBCC hearing that government in 2025 will allocate 590 plus billion, 91 billion in the form of ayuda, no? For 2025. And of course, ayuda has its purpose. Meron siyang layunin, meron siyang direction. But we all know that ayuda comes in the form of pagbibigay ng ayuda, no? Pagbibigay ng payout. If you compare that to free higher education is an investment. No? Yung linalagay nating pera doon, ang kapalit noon is diploma. No? So just to compare free higher education and ayuda, the free higher education will yield the country more students who will graduate with a diploma. And that will enable them to look for meaningful jobs in or outside of the country. So maybe later on, Madam Chair, we can request the chairman of the Finance Committee kung pwedeng kumurot ng konti sa ayuda, no? At kasi ang hinihingi naman ng SUC is 3 billion in addition. No? So kukurot lang tayo doon sa 591 billion para mapunuan natin ng konti yung kailangan sa free higher education. No?
But let me add, no, beyond that, because I will support that. I will join His Honor in the official submission of our recommendation. Kasi bahala siya kung saan niya kunin, but you're just giving everybody a glimpse of saan possibly kumuha. Kasi that's part of our job, na maghanap din kami ng source. But the other thing I really want, and Pasok can be very helpful here, is what is the infrastructure, the human manpower, the teaching and non-teaching positions that need to be filled to support this. Kasi it's one thing na the budget covers the tuition, pero hindi na sila kasya sa classroom. Kulang ang outdated na yung technology nila. So I want that to be part of the growth. So have a choose 3 or 4 or 5 model cities, choose 3 from the big cities, one in Metro Manila, PUP, TUP, whoever, then choose one in the Visayas, choose one in Mindanao. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's allocate what 20 million per ano, that's not big. That's not big, but it's a start. Kasi otherwise, ano yung that's why I had my file. I was trying to keep my discussion short, no? But ano na yung quality ng education na ino-offer? Yun yung point ko. Kasi yung utang na yan, okay, kasi nga may dagdag na estudyanteng tinanggap, pero what? Nadagdagan ba facilities? Nadagdagan ba yung teacher? Yung oras ba ng teacher na maibigay sa estudyante niyang dating 40 na nga, baka naging 60 pa? Paano? What's the quality? What's the output? What's the outcome? And when you look at, I've seen surveys on Filipino graduates, yes, ando naman yung ano natin na we're the most hospitable, we're the most hardworking, but ano yung pinabaon natin sa kanilang quality of education when they graduate, when this is what we are confronted with, that we already know, and I don't know if there's been any progress, yung workload ng teachers. I harp on that every budget na ang UP, President Gigil, ano yung average na workload ng teachers natin sa UP?
About
Units?
15 units.
15 units.
15 units.
Okay, sa pasok, sa SUCs, ilan?
18 po. Some, that's on the average. We have more.
Iba mukha ko, mag-iiba sagot mo.
Hindi po.
And that,
We have 18, we have...
I'm speaking from 2013 to 2016 experience when I sat on the board. Okay, when I sat on the board. Good news na ba? Kasi yung nakikita ko noon, 23, 20.
Madam Chair, may 21 po, may 18. I heard may 15.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we're
But majority po,
But-
on the average, 18.
But sana naman may goals naman tayo para yung quality naman ng teaching, mabuhos naman ng teacher. Yes.
Just 3 points, Madam Chair. First, on the intervention of Senator Gatchalian, I think there are 2 points that are important to include. Number 1, it's better to invest in free higher education because you can track the results. Doon sa ayuda, hindi mo masyadong matrack kung ano talagang nangyari. But you can track the completion rate, the graduation rate, the employment rate of the students that are being subsidized by government. You can quantify the investments that are put in terms of outcome. It's easier to do that in education than in social services. Madaling i-quantify eh. It's easy to justify increasing the investment. The second one is, the World Bank has studied the past 2 decades, and their conclusion is the highest return of investment is now in higher education. It's not in primary or secondary. 17% return of investment in higher education according to the World Bank. And these are comparative studies all over the world. 7% for high school completion, 10% for elementary completion, 17% for higher ed. So it makes sense that the global requirement for manpower now requires higher education because that's the highest rate of return. So I think that also reinforces what you said, that we should put more in free higher education actually compared to other, programs because it's easy to measure and empirically it has been studied by the World Bank extensively. Mataas yung rate of return. My comment on what Senator Cayetano said is lumiit po yung load kasi